Hello Exiles, Redlord here, and this time I'm back with an explanation for yet another Infinite Herald chain that I've cooked, but this time I am safe to say that I am not the first one to cook this. I actually, after all of the testing, all of the hours that I put into the testing, gathering up low-level monsters and trying to freeze them, trying to shock them, see what works, what doesn't, I found a video on YouTube that explains it quite well, what does work and what doesn't. And yeah, so I'll leave the channel in the description. You can check that person's videos. He explains that quite well, I would say. And yeah, maybe it's gonna spark some of your other Herald chain ideas. But yeah, basically what I'm doing here is I'm chaining Herald of Ice between Armour Explosion. Armour Explosion freezes enough, and then proc Herald of Ice, and Herald of Ice Armor explodes enemies, and yeah, repeats the cycle. The chain infinitely ping-pongs between one and another. So basically, thanks to Anvil's weight, we armor break with our Herald of Ice. Armor break is gonna proc Armor Explosion support, and Armor Explosion support is gonna freeze enemies and then proc Herald of Ice again, creating infinite explosions. In this variation, of course, it has to be different, because that wouldn't be me if it wouldn't be different. Yeah, and usually unnecessarily harder to make, and yeah, pretty much that. Unnecessarily harder to make. But yeah, I'm going Original Sin, because I don't really like to worry about resists and like while clearing, and this build is extremely starved on points, so I didn't want to really go into some elemental penetration stuff on the skill tree, such as here. So I decided that I'm going to convert all elemental damage into chaos, because from my experience there's not really that many chaos resistant monsters in the game, and that makes it just obvious choice if you don't want to use worry about resist that much, and you're not a crit build, right? But yeah, so Herald of Ice, I'm supporting it with Armor Explosion, Magnified Area, Freeze, Cold Penetration, and that the Tool's Stillness. And yeah, the Tool's Stillness gonna give some cold damage as extra chaos, and that's gonna work for Herald of Ice. As you can see, it's giving it damage as extra. But the freeze build-up is not gonna do anything, right? Because Herald of Ice cannot freeze, since it's a payoff skill and it procs off of freezing. So yep, you cannot basically freeze with Herald of Ice, otherwise it would chill by itself, right? But yeah, Armor Explosion, that's a different story. Armor Explosion doesn't get to do anything with freeze. Armor Explosion converts 100% of physical damage to fire. Attack damage of this skill is 30% of default attack damage. So yeah, and it says it cannot armor break. It's a payoff. It cannot inflict armor break. However, our Herald of Ice can. And how to actually calculate the damage of Armor Explosion? You can do that by, I would say, yeah, I just remembered that the person in the video that I was talking about actually explained this too. So what you basically do is pretty much take your basic attack damage and then give it 70% less damage, and that's what's gonna be your armor break damage. And yeah, so the idea is to get enough chaos damage, to get enough cold damage to actually make the armor explosion freeze. And yeah, I'm doing that with the Original Sin, as I said, and by just actually scaling cold damage, damage is extra cold, and that's gonna give the armor explosion damage is extra cold, and damage as extra applies at the same time as conversion does. So it doesn't get damage as extra, doesn't get converted, but it gets applied at the same time, which means that actually Armor Explosion doesn't deal only chaos damage, since Original Sin converts that converted physical to fire, converts then that fire to chaos. It does also do cold damage, and cold damage by itself can contribute, or contributes to freeze buildup, right? So that's why I'm using stuff like more freeze buildup and cold penetration. The freeze buildup works obviously even for the chaos damage, it's just not more freeze buildup with cold damage, but more freeze buildup in general, right? And cold penetration is there just to penetrate cold res. And that's pretty much the Herald of Ice explained, how it works. And how the scaling on this build works, just, yeah, scale enough attack damage, scale enough increases the damage, because Armor Explosion is an attack. It makes it easy because Herald of Ice is also an attack. They're both AoE, so they scale with AoE modifiers and all of that. So it makes it quite easy to actually scale in terms of damage. Unfortunately, Armor Explosion doesn't get scaled by level, so I've got level 31 Herald of Ice, plus 12 levels, right, just from my weapons. And yeah, that does, unfortunately, that doesn't affect Armor Explosion, but no big deal. And yeah, now for the map showcase, I'm gonna give you pretty much what I'm doing with this build right now, since I'm waiting for them to launch the 3.0.3.1 patch, where you don't have to worry about setting up your towers. All I'm doing is I'm basically running between citadels and setting up citadels and running maps for experience, which I'm rolling like this, using the chaotic quantity on a fully modified waystone, and then using a chaos orb. All the modifiers are gonna give you pack size, and pack size with this build is fun. I'm gonna give you a showcase of, yeah, wetlands that should be hopefully an open layout map. And I didn't even check the modifiers. Hopefully it will be good for showcasing. Yeah, so these are the modifiers of the map. If you want to read that, go ahead. I'm not gonna bother. But yeah, how it works. I basically freeze with something, and as you can see, it procs the explosion. And the two things I'm currently freezing with is Forge Hammer, because I wanted to make a Hammerfall build and call it a Hammerfall build. Just basically run around as I'm doing right here and throw Forge Hammer. And that's all I'm doing on this build. And if something hits me, oh, that was a nutty explosion. If something hits me, I've got Wind Dancer that actually procs the freeze too, as you can see. And yep, this build is gonna tank your frames. Absolutely, it's gonna steal all your frames and never come back. Yeah, it is what it is currently, but I guess here it is at least understandable on this build, since you're doing all of this freezing, all of this shattering, just proliferating everywhere, all of these small little fragments, particles, right? And yeah, on this build, it is actually at least understandable that we have low frames. But yeah, it is just what it is. It's gonna happen. It's gonna tank your frames, unfortunately. But as you can see, it is proccing nicely. It's pretty much the same as it was during the initial launch of PoE2. You had the Herald explosions between one another, right? Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. But this time it's not Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. It's actually easier. It's Herald of Ice and Armor Explosion on Warbringer. And yeah, pretty easy, pretty fun. And yeah, some nutty little explosions, as you can see. Like that quite a lot. And yeah, works nicely. Really helps you with the clear. That's really the issue I always have with Warrior. Alright, I know that Warrior can do single target, right? But how am I actually gonna make it clear? And yeah, the answer to that, with this, I would say quite easy. Just armor break everything so it explodes in Herald of Ice, and Herald of Ice is gonna do the job. And yeah, I just missed my hammer. But yeah, that's why I call it a Hammerfall build. I basically run around like this and I throw my hammer and it kills stuff. And Herald of Ice and Armor Explosion does the rest. And yeah, this is what happens sometimes. Sometimes you just throw your hammer into the fucking stratosphere and you never see it again. Literally never see it again. That happened to me several times actually, where I just threw my hammer and it didn't come back. It just got lost. And yeah, it basically flew off of the map. Ooh, what do we have here? Exceptional. Was it 30%? 26%. Let's open up yet another breach. Why not 2 breaches at the same time? Wait, you cannot? You can open 2 breaches at the same time, right? I believe so. But yeah, as you can see, the frames graph, it is pretty bad. I'm running 270. I'm on a 270 RTX. And yeah, my PC just doesn't like PoE that much this season. Oh, that's the second breach. Perfect. Ooh, ooh, ooh. oi oi oi. But yeah, as you can see, these are some serious explosions happening. And yeah, feels damn good. Feels damn good. I'm not gonna lie, I like it a lot. Feels like we're at launch again. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. So for the conclusion, basically for this version that I'm running, just get enough cold damage, enough chaos damage to reliably, I would summarize it to get enough raw damage to make the armor explosion be able to do so much damage that it actually freezes, or get so much freeze buildup that it actually freezes, and then work with that. I went with the brute force. That's why I went for basically 2 big two-handers, because I want to just go brute force and really go heavy on the damage to make the armor explosion just do so much damage, because of some previous testing that I was doing even before the previous build that I've played, the Herald of Blood. So yeah, I just want to make double sure and basically go ham on the damage scaling, and that's just what I did, and it feels good so far. The tankiness is somewhat there. Yep, I'll make a build showcase about this soon, so stay tuned. And eventually when it's out, it's gonna be in the videos, in this video description, as well as the YouTube channel that I found that talks about the interactions of Herald of Ice with armor explosion and different possibilities, different options. So yeah, that's the explanation. Hope you enjoyed, and thank you very much for watching. See you next time, Exiles.